Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Voices of Change. We're back again with another episode in our historical figures series. Again, that is our historical figures series. Today we'll be getting this into something nice, something right, and a little bit of spice. We're going to be talking about Malcolm X. Snap. And we are here to just share our piece and to display the voices that have been the change in history. So everybody, hey, round of applause. Welcome. And let's dive back into it. Let's get it. Come on now. So Malcolm X, a name that evokes power, defiance, and transformation. A man whose journey from a life of crime to a global icon of Black liberation. He changed the way that we think about resistance, the way that we think about identity, but also the way that we encapsulate and think about self-determination. But what does Malcolm X's legacy really mean for us today? Tex, I'm gonna let you take it off.
So that's what we're diving in today, Gabe. Malcolm X message wasn't just about fighting for equality. It was about reclaiming our pride, our history, and most importantly, our right to define who we are in this world. And he was a voice of change, and he had the voices of change. We want to talk about from his radical ideas on race and self-defense to his evolving perspectives on global unity. There's so much we can learn from him.
Yes, yes. And that's exactly why we're bringing this to the table today. His story is not just about the past. It's not just about when he was living, but it's about how he and what he stood for was deeply connected to the struggles we're currently facing at this current moment in our communities, in our livelihoods, in our country, and beyond. Now, to understand Malcolm, we need to first understand, though, from point A to point Z, his evolution from the corrupt, the crime, to being that global Black liberation icon. And so, as we delve into this, we're going to talk about the Malcolm X and understand that Malcolm today isn't the same Malcolm who walked the streets of Harlem in the 60s. His journey was one of growth, one of learning, and perhaps most importantly, one of challenging his own beliefs. I'll pass this off to you, Tex.
And, that's one of the things I love about Malcolm X. He didn't just preach about change, he lived it. His path from prison, you say the penitentiary nowadays, to the Nation of Islam, to his pilgrimage to Mecca, and his eventual shift toward a broader, more inclusive vision of Black unity is a reminder that growth isn't linear. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
I like that. I like that. Yes, sir. So, following what Tex left off on, we're going to go and get us started with our discussion, right? Let's start at the beginning. And with the beginning of anything, it starts at, the early life, where somebody started and, that change into the radicalization of the Malcolm X. Now, Malcolm X wasn't always the figure we associate with revolutionary ideas. No, not at all. He was born Malcolm Little. He grew up in a turbulent household. He lost his father to a racially motivated murder. That hits deep. But he also had a hard time finding his sense of direction. But that all changed when he was incarcerated. If anybody read the Malcolm X book, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But I'll pass that off. Yeah, go ahead, Tex.
That's right. That book, that's also an inspiration to us having this discussion today. It was in prison where Malcolm started to really transform. He went from being a hustler, a petty criminal, to a man who was hungry for knowledge. And that's where his encounter with the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam really shaped his worldview. The Nation gave him a framework for understanding the systemic oppression Black people face, and it gave him a sense of purpose. And as you can see, we're still talking about him in this time because his voice was a change. He was a voice of change.
Yes, indeed. A voice of change that lives on forever. We have people with portraits, pictures of him on their walls, so that they can feel that sense of revolution, feel that sense of liberation, right? And so, following what Tex was saying, that is one of the first major takeaways from his life, right? Malcolm X, he found his purpose in the struggle, through his struggle for Black empowerment, in a time when Black empowerment was something that was unheard of, something that was frowned upon by the masses. What we see is that, however, this Black empowerment, it took time for him to discover that. It took time to evolve. It took time to mature, and he didn't come out of the womb with a fully formed ideology. I think a lot of us as individuals, and we see these people in enigmatic roles, right? Idols, icons, and we just flock to them, and we believe that they were born with this. But when it comes to the actuality of things that are going on, we have to understand that these things are learned. These things are crafted, mastered, as you can say. But what I will say is that with this time that he was in prison for Malcolm X, right? It was his thirst for knowledge and his drive to understand the world in a deeper way. And this is what drove him to evolve, to become the man, the icon, the idol, the liberation leader he was in the 60s, and, for what he represents today. Now, we can also look at the way that he approached not only his thirst for knowledge, but his drive, right? And this is something that we all can learn from. We put our lens on, in a different role, right? There's times in sociology they talk about the veil. There's you, and then there's the you that you pass yourself off to be on a day-to-day basis. But being able to, use that lens to see a different ideology or understand and dive deeper, we could all learn from the different aspects and the different tools that Malcolm X was equipped with and utilized, not only in his speeches, but, in the messages that he portrayed. So one thing we should always be doing is questioning, right? Reading and expanding our horizons. If we limit ourselves to just what mass media passes off to us, we're on the phone and we're scrolling through social media, or you might hop on the news, how are you really ever going to understand the deeper root, the deeper cause, the deeper reason for, why, what, where, what we're doing in this current, lifestyle, especially with the landscape that we're currently in. I'm not going to get into politics because I'm not political, but where I'm going. So I'll pass it off to you, Tex. You can go ahead and rock the show.
Yeah, I mean, I can get into politics. This is what I do for a living. But if you want to,
we'll hand that torch to you, my good sir.
Yeah, but we ain't gonna get into politics on this conversation today. We just want to have a chance to talk about a voice of change that has been a part of history, and that person's Malcolm X. So now we're just kind of transitioning to the Nation of Islam and his advocacy for self-defense. Now during his time with the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X became known for his unapologetic stance on self-defense. He famously said, "By any means necessary." So this is a very stark contrast to Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence. And a lot of people have debated over time about who was right or who was wrong. We'll also be doing we'll be talking about Dr. King in another episode. But Malcolm argued that
stay tuned.
Black people had every right to defend themselves against the violence they were experiencing. And I just want to emphasize on the aspect of by any means necessary. It doesn't have to always associate to physical fighting. It can also be psychological, financial, social, emotional. By any means necessary, how do you protect yourself? And those are some things I can say from my understanding based upon the readings I've done of Malcolm. I've never met the guy. Never have. Probably never. I never will.
You never will.
Never will. But from his teachings, there just are some things to just think about. Is that he argued that for our people, not only in the United States but across the world, you had to fight for every right in every way to defend yourself against the violence they were experiencing.
Now, one thing I will say is, Tex, that is a critical point, especially in the ideology that Malcolm X had. He understood that there were different ways to approach the struggle for freedom. And for him, by any means necessary, wasn't just about physical defense. It was about fighting back in all aspects of your life, every single aspect. Like you said, emotional, physical, mental, the financial, political, all these different things, right? For him, it was about education, economic power, and political activism. But yes, we will, delve back into this, though, is that Malcolm was also very clear that when you're constantly under attack, you have a right to fight back. Ooh, that rhymes. Let me say it again 2 times for the people. It says he was very clear that when you're constantly under attack, you have a right to fight back. Ooh, that's some bar right there. And even if that does mean taking up arms, this is, of course, back when, what was it, the 5th Amendment, open carry, all these, before they changed the laws and everything. But it's important to, relish in that fact, right? He was speaking out, and his voice of change led an entire, multiple groups of people, to, 1, become educated, 2, to be feasibly attain economic power, and then also to be politically active. And so that is, the base of, of course, Nation of Islam and his advocacy for that self-defense. But go ahead, Tex, take it away, man.
Absolutely, man. And it's important to note that Malcolm's views evolved over time. Early on, he believed that the Black community should be separate from white America and that integration was an illusion. But after his pilgrimage to Mecca, his views began to shift. He saw Muslims of all races, and it opened his eyes to the possibility of unity across racial lines, which is a big departure from the separatist views he had held before.
Unity! Okay, I'm sorry, I had to do it. But right, so it was a turning point in his life, right? He began to see the world through a more global lens. You saw how we're putting 2 and 2 together. We got the veil, we got the different lens, and we're going back with the global lens. All right, hey, follow along, I'm right there with you. And he also, back to it, Malcolm, he also realized that the fight for Black liberation, it wasn't just an American issue. No, it was a global struggle. It was something that was transpiring across the entire planet. And I would say this speaks to one of his core messages, is that liberation is a universal need. The struggles of Black people in America are connected to the different struggles of oppressed people everywhere.
And his impact on Black identity and pride. Malcolm X was all about reclaiming Black identity. I know we did the Marcus Garvey, and I actually read a few things about Marcus Garvey, is that he actually never ended up going to Africa. I think you can go fact check me on this, but he ended up in London. Now, Malcolm X, on the other side, he actually ended up going to Africa, I think. But Malcolm X was all about reclaiming Black identity. He rejected the notion that we had to assimilate into a white-dominated society. He was one of the first to really push for Black pride, to teach people to stand tall in who they are, in their history, in their culture. His work really did ignite the Black Power movement. And not only did it ignite the Black Power movement, it revolutionized other people around him. Because as always, remember, this is the voices of change. He was a voice of change, not for himself, but for everybody else that was around.
And I would say, like, similar to what you're saying, like, he was a voice of change, but he wasn't solely speaking for himself. He was representing the masses, the multitudes of people that don't have a voice, that can't speak up, that doesn't have the education to speak up, didn't have the opportunity to speak up. No, he stood in the gap for all of these people so that he could be that voice of change for Black empowerment, for Black pride, for Black identity. Now, one thing that makes me also think about this, and something that comes to mind when in this conversation is that, I'm not sure exactly when Black Wall Street, right, was occurring at this time, whether it was concurrent or whether it was a predecessor or something that happened after, right? But it stands to reason, if we know the story of Black Wall Street, a group of not a group, an entire street, town, people, community of Black people, Black entrepreneurs, Black doctors, Black everything, boom. And they had the economic power. They had, the identity there, and it was wiped away by I don't know who knows who did that, but it was wiped away. It was taken away.
I don't know either.
Right. It was taken away. And this is something that is important because when you think about what Malcolm X was doing, whether it's, like I said, you got some fact checking, whether Black Wall Street was a predecessor or it was concurrently happening, is that this is a thing that was happening across, the America, but a thing that's happened across the world. And there's plenty of other different stories that, of course, if we did our research, we can delve into and piggyback into the same topic, right? But similar to circling back, right, to what you were saying, Tex, is that it wasn't just about pride, right? It was about self-determination, right? Having the grit to stand up, having the grit to, stand in the gap for these people and be the change that we want to see, to be that voice of change. Malcolm taught us that we don't need to seek approval from a system that's been designed to oppress us. His advocacy for self-reliance, for Black people to control their own communities, economy, and future, it still resonates today, to this day. And we're still fighting for that autonomy in many ways.
And that's why we are talking about him still, because it's still going on. And his teachings, his doings. And it's important to remember that for all his radical rhetoric, Malcolm X was deeply committed to justice. He believed in equality, but not at the expense of our dignity. His message wasn't about hating white people. It was about loving ourselves enough to stand up for what's ours. And that's something we can take with us today, is as we continue to battle systemic oppression and all different forms of microaggressions, stereotypes, always remember there was people in our past, in our history, that fought for us to be in this situation. And it's important to recognize it's not about you. There's a bigger purpose to yourself. And Malcolm X is a great example of that type of person. He had a bigger purpose than just for himself. He had a purpose for the people he represented, the people who looked like him, the people who were like-minded like him, the people who he rubbed shoulders with. He saw a bigger purpose than him.
And that's real. And I think this is something that we can all take and apply to our daily lives, right? Something that the groups in our community, we got YNs now, we got the quarter zips.
I'm not on that quarter zip though. I forever be a YN. I'm sorry.
Hey, you can take that and do as you wish, right? I don't involve myself with either of them. However, what I will say,
but I do like that
right?
matcha though. I do like some matcha.
Okay, you like some matcha? Okay, this guy over here with the matcha boba tea. All right. But piggybacking on what I'm saying is that right? We have different groups in our communities now that can serve and that can do better for our team, do better for our group, do better for our community, do better for our people, our skin, our culture, everything in between, right? We have all of the different tools available to us, but I feel like, especially nowadays, that people don't take the tools and actually use them to benefit themselves in the long run, or to benefit, their seed or their offspring, or, just the community, like how it looks. Like, think about it. We got all this type, man, there's so many. I swear to you, the Black buying power is probably the strongest buying power in America. And none of our money stays in.
Not just in America, in the world.
In the world. And I think about it, right? It's like Malcolm X, right? The one thing that stood out to me, right, is of course the Black identity, Black economic power, and Black self-reliance, right? I don't know for sure, but this may just be a feeling, but I'm pretty sure I've read is that majority of Black people, we don't have a real like business. You look at the rhetoric of it, right? You know, we got Asians owning laundromats. I hate to say it like that. I'm sorry. This is a stereotype, you know, stuff like this. Business owners, you know, we got Asians that got different stores. You know, they got Chinese food. We got soul food. They got pho. They got all this, you know. And I may be going on a tangent here, but what I'm saying is this, right? How can we battle systemic oppression if we don't? Of course, we're not given the tools to actually create a type of system for ourselves. We have to use a system that was already created, you know, of course, right? But how do you work in a system that is built to work against you, you know? And I think that it's about, you know, putting the power back in the hands of the people, putting the power back in the hands of the African American Black community, wherever you align in that, whether you're, you know, a natural born, you know, African American, or we got a lot of Africans here. Shout out Tex, in America, and
shout out that 254. You feel me?
Come on now, don't know what an area code is. If that's Kenya, shout out Kenya. But like I said, this may be a tangent, but I really feel like when it comes to equality and it comes to, you know, what we're doing. Right, like I said, it's not us versus them. It's not Black people versus white people, Black people versus Asian people, Black people versus Mexican people, right? But it's about Black people working with Black people to meet a common goal, right? And I just don't feel like those goals really align for a lot of people because of the selfishness that's in our community. Nonetheless, back to Malcolm X, his legacy and what it actually means for us today, and why it is important, right? Like, so Malcolm X, his legacy is not something that is picture perfect. It is very complex. There's multiple layers, and it is incredibly relevant to this day. His unwavering commitment to Black empowerment, his insistence that we don't have to wait for approval to claim our rights, and his challenge to his challenge to the status quo. Those lessons are more crucial than ever, especially today, whether we're fighting for justice, for education, or for economic freedom. Especially with all of the taxes and all of the inflation. Yeah, economic freedom. Malcolm showed us that it's possible to transform ourselves and our communities, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Now, Tex, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take that one.
And, you know, and I think that's the beauty of his journey. And just to think about the fact that, you know, like nowadays we have kind of a two-party system, right? I might go on a tangent here, but he was really neither a Republican or a Democrat. Nowadays, you're either told to choose a side or you're independent or whatever. But he was a staunch critic of both parties and advocated for independent Black political action based on the philosophy of Black nationalism. That was his perspective. That was his idea. Not saying he was right or wrong, but in his impactful 1964 speech, The Ballot or the Bullet, he explained his position, urging that African Americans, Black people in the United States, need to control politics within their own communities, regardless of existing party lines. Going back to Gabe's point, and I'm probably going to quote Marshawn Lynch here, like he said, take care of your chicken. You know, get your chicken, take care of your chicken.
Get your chicken and take care of your chicken.
That essentially is kind of exactly what Malcolm X was talking about here. And he didn't just preach about change. He became the change himself. Damn near to the point where I think got him killed, I think. And his life is proof that transformation is possible. We can evolve, challenge our own beliefs, and grow as individuals and as a collective. And his example teaches us that it's never too late to redefine ourselves, our purpose, and most importantly, our place in the world.
Come on now. One thing I will say, as you did go off on a tangent, I wanted to piggyback off that, is that Marshawn Lynch is from Oakland, Oakland being the home base of the Black Panther organization. And, you know, of course, shout out Huey P. Newton, you know, my brother from another mother.
Blue fight.
Blue fight, you know. And so you can definitely tell that, you know, because Marshawn Lynch was so tied to Oakland that he might have had those liberation, revolutionary type ideals instilled to him, so that we have that quote, protect your chicken, because at the end of the day, who's gonna protect you? It ain't gonna be the people. A lot of people out there to beat them, to take care of themselves. You got to take care of you.
Because if your chicken get taken away, where you gonna get your eggs from? You gonna have to
buy. Come on now.
You gonna have to buy from the. You gonna have to buy from the person who stole your chicken, and then they're selling you eggs.
Yeah, they might have killed your chicken, killed your money maker. Shit. Come on now, and that's powerful, Tex. I'll tell you. But as we wrap up this discussion, of course, we have to ask our listeners, right? What part of Malcolm X's story resonates with you? And one thing that I would like to ask everybody is to take a second and ask yourself, how can you take his lessons, whether it's about self-determination, pride, resistance, and apply them to your life today, especially in the tumultuous times as we're living in 2025. We're all a part of this ongoing struggle, and Malcolm X's message still guides us to this day.
No doubt on that. And remember, we're having this discussion just because we want to emulate the people who have been part of history all around the world and have resonated with us as well in our lives, in other people's lives. And one of the things that we would like for people to take away from this is that change starts with us, in the ways we think, in the ways we act, in the ways we come together. So from the teachings of Malcolm X, he believed in the power of one, but he knew that the power of many could change the world. So if you can take away something that I would say you should take away from just this conversation, as you can see here, is that us ourselves here are using the teachings of somebody else. It's essentially kind of the mirror effect. He is mirroring his things on us, and then we're picking and choosing what works for us. But at the end of the day, we're not doing it alone. And I'm gonna do this like I usually like to do. I'm gonna go back to sports. You can't win by yourself unless you run track, tennis, golf. But even that, you still need a team to help you train. You still need a caddy for golf. You still need somebody to shoot the gun for you to run the race in track. It don't matter. Teamwork makes the dream work. And that is the most simplest way I can say I think his message can carry on today is, one, understanding the importance of self-reliance, self-determination. But remember, to make the dream work, you gotta have a team. We all gotta come together. So all our people out there, man, be a voice of change, not just for yourself, but for your community as well.
Oof, I like that, Tex. And one thing I will say about that teamwork, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. A team that works makes the dream work. Straight up. You can't have a team, right? And you got two people doing all the work and somebody's reaping all the benefits. That don't make sense. Make sure whatever team that you guys build and the people that you bring along on your life raft, on your journey into your business, into your house, into your family, into your friend group, whatever, is that they here to give as much as they're going to take, the same way you're ready to give as much as you're ready to take. And it's not even take, it's about enjoying the splendor of all the work that you guys do. So that's my little blurb at the end. But all right, y'all, this has been another episode of Voices of Change. We'll catch you next time as we continue exploring the legacies of other trailblazers in the Historical Figures series.
So stay strong, stay united, and as always, keep fighting for change, peace, be a voice of change. Peace out.
Peace. Love. Bless.